ठीक है. Is it audible? Okay, good morning. And today we'll discuss about the basic concepts and definitions that we'll have in environment, especially ecology, environment, and all those aspects of it, right? When you understand this particular topic, environment on a whole, this is a particular topic which is quite important. That's what we have seen earlier also. Number of questions are more than 15 every year, right? And of course, it becomes tedious or difficult in a sense owing to the type of questions which are being asked. Sometimes the very basic questions are being asked, sometimes very current-oriented questions are being asked. So we cannot trace out that, okay, fine, this is the area which would be more important, because every year there could be some area which can be important. One area, sometimes energy is important, sometimes the international conventions are important, sometimes biodiversity becomes important, sometimes the ecology becomes important. So overall, the aspects of it keeps on flanking. But whenever we understand this particular thing, an environment on a whole, this particular topic is divided into 5 or 6 major heads whenever we say environment, right? The first and foremost aspect of it comes from ecology, the basic understanding, definition, processes which would go on. Obviously, this particular topic is being extracted out of the basic concepts which are being explained with NCERT, right? Understanding and applying these concepts is something which is more important. Many a times, very simple questions are being asked based on definitions, or we can say based on simple concepts of ecology, but they become tedious just by a sense because of lack of information or because of a slight confusion with the definition itself. Like, for example, niche. Ecological niche is one of the most famous concept in ecology and has been asked in UPSC. Not once, twice, it has been asked thrice in different aspects. So in simple understanding itself, it becomes tedious, right? So we'll understand ecology, the concepts of ecology, the basic meaning of ecology, food chain, food web, and all those related aspects of it. This is one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is environmental pollution and deterioration. Environmental pollution itself is one particular topic which has not only been asked continuously in UPSC PT, but is also one of the topic in UPSC mains as well, right? Although understanding the topic for UPSC PT or UPSC mains is slightly different, but the overall sketch of it is almost same for both, be it be mains, be it be PT, right? Whenever we speak about environmental pollution, we speak about the air pollution, the water pollution, soil, land and deforestation, etc., all would come over here. Noise pollution and others. That would include the radioactive pollution, the other hazardous waste material which are causing pollution, etc. That would also be the second aspect of this particular topic, right? Understanding pollution and then creating, this is one aspect of it. What are the pollutants? How different aspects of environment they are being polluted is one aspect of it. Conservation is another aspect of it. How we can slow down the environmental pollution, or how we can slow down the basic process of environmental deterioration, be it be air, right? So if there are multiple factors, there are certain other methods or measures which we can use or which we can relate to, which can help in reducing those factors or minimizing those factors also. So conservation becomes one aspect of it. Now in conservation itself, we can trace it down to 2 different ways. Number one is relative to conservation technologies, or we can say methods or processes, like we have discussed it in the earlier class also, that recirculating aquaculture system question would come over here, right? Methods. Like if air is being polluted, what are the methods using which we can cut down air pollution, right? If water is polluted, then obviously primary, secondary, tertiary treatment of water is required. That would come over here, the methods on a whole, right? This would include the environmental engineering also. This would include the latest technologies also, right? All of these would come over here. Clean coal technology, green technologies, they would all help in reducing the aerial pollution, right? So be it be green energy, be it be anything else also, that would come over here in technologies or methods. Carbon credits and all that, that would come in the second aspect of it. That would be the conservation policies. That we have to understand, right? Now, policies at the national level, at the international level. Also, this would link to one more aspect. This would link to one more aspect. That would be the climate change. Now, climate change on a whole, as such, if we speak about, is one of the important aspect of environment, environmental pollution also. And of course, the aerial pollution over here, when you speak about pollution of the air, it directly links to the climate change, right? So whenever we say climate change, then climate change also becomes a particular point where we need to understand the factors which are causing climate change. What would cause climate change on the whole, right? Why climate is changing? What are the major factors which are being attributed to this? We have discussed a question from 2023 PT also, the perfluorocarbons or hydrofluorocarbons. What are their uses in different areas, right? This is a simple question. In the same way, the causes of climate change, that would be methane, that would be carbon dioxide, that would be hydrofluorocarbons, chlorofluorocarbons, all of these, and the processes involved in that. Factors and processes is one aspect of climate change. Now, usually what happens, students stick down to this only, or at max, they stick down to the impacts. What would happen with climate change, right? What are the impacts of climate change? They say if temperature is increasing continuously, water bodies would dry out, the deforestation would appear, the air would become hazy, and then temperature would increase, crops would die out, right? Melting up of the glacier. These all factors they are being attributed to, right? Different things they are being attributed to. But not only impacts, we have to understand a particular impact and how it would create a particular problem, and then how we would create a solution. So climate mitigation is also one aspect of climate change. Now, mitigation itself, again, processes and then policies, right? So conservation over here, if we say environmental conservation policies and then climate change policies, they come in line itself. They could be national policies which are being created, like the National Clean Air Program, which is being created by Government of India. Then that is directly created, that is directly located towards cleaning up of the urban air or the problems created by in the air. That would somewhere down the track influence the targets which are being created for climate change mitigation also. So climate change mitigation policies, somewhere down the track, they would link up to the national policies also, and they will have their own international policies also, which would create the international governance, international environmental governance. Now, this particular topic itself is one of the very highlighted topic, right? You speak about various things. United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change. You might have heard about COP28, which has happened under United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change much recently, right? Climate change policies, politics, carbon credit, carbon markets, they are all over here in this international environmental governance. And not only this, with this, there are many small things also. There are many small organizations which are also being spoken of. There are various, we can say, initiatives which are being taken up by the national government in coordination with international organizations also. So organizations itself is one of the highlighted topic over here. International organizations, and there are many. Every time UPSC surprises students with these, right? अब ये वो वाले question है that we have discussed. These are those which are the tough questions, or we might see them as tough questions because of the lack of information, right? हमें ज्यादा चेज इन चीजों को करना चाहिए instead of this, क्योंकि इसमें मैक्सिमम 2 क्वेश्चन होगा, जिसमें से एक बन जाएगा, एक नहीं बनेगा, मत भागो, ठीक है, फिर भी हम पढ़ेंगे, ऐसा नहीं है कि उसको नहीं पढ़ेंगे, बट इसके पीछे ज्यादा भागने से बेटर है कि हम और चीजों पे जहां पे क्वेश्चंस आते हैं उसको हम समझ सकें. प्लस with environmental mitigation or climate mitigation itself, we can also speak about sustainable development, which is also one of the important topic. Sustainable development on a whole, sustainable practices, which would again link up to the processes which are being involved. Abhi yahan pe we'll have everything: agriculture, we'll have energy, which is being spoken of, and other major processes which are being involved over here. And with the international governance itself, how sustainable development goals, and how different practices which are being created, they are in line with the sustainable development goals itself, become one of the topic also. So understanding this would also be one aspect of it. So understanding all these, if we'll understand, then these are the major heads or topics which we can say, which we'll find in environment, right? In environment. Now linked to this, we can also have one more topic, that is biodiversity. Right? Understanding the basic nature of the biodiversity, what is biodiversity, how it is being quantified, the basic understanding, concepts, etc., that would all come up over here. Concepts and definitions would come up over here in biodiversity. Then understanding the extent of global biodiversity, not in detail, but just the pockets, the important pockets of global biodiversity, that will also help us. Then the Indian biodiversity in detail. And then the conservation steps which are being taken up, conservation policies, etc., overall, right? So whenever we discuss this particular topic in detail, it would depend upon your perception also, it would depend upon your grasping also. This particular topic, we'll say, would take somewhere around 10 to 12 classes of discussion, right? We'll discuss in detail, and we'll discuss with a slow pace also. If you require, we'll discuss with slow pace also, because this is a kind of a topic which is tedious in nature, right? Right. So this is the basic extent of it. That's what we'll discuss overall, right? Now, if we understand this thing, today we'll discuss about the basic definitions that we'll find in ecology, or we'll find in environment, right? The basic understanding of it. Right. So now when we say this particular word, environment on a whole, right? What do you understand by this word? What is this? Okay, biotic and abiotic. Okay, you came on to the basic terminology, fine. But my point of asking over here is, what do you understand by the term itself? What is this environment? Things around us, surrounding, right? Whatever we see. Do this class has an environment? Yes, it does has an environment. It has an environment in various sense. right? It has an environment as far as the surrounding is considered. It has an environment as far as the culture is considered. It also has an environment as far as the beings are considered. There are two different types of the beings whenever we say, right? So whenever we say environment, environment is anything which is surrounding me, or in a very basic meaning, environment is everything except me, right? Now we can differentiate over here with two terms also: external environment, internal environment. So there are various definitions of it, right? As far as the basic understanding of environment is considered, we say everything except me is environment. Fine. Now, everything except me, how many things would be considered everything except me? Number one. Number second, when I consider myself, what is the basic constituent of me? Cell. Okay, fine. Okay. Fine. Fine.
Interaction with temperature, body interaction with the surroundings.
Fine. But bacteria would have same things. It would have respiratory organs. It is living, of course. It has lungs? That you don't know. It does not. It is just a cell. You are multicellular. And bacteria is just a cell. Right? So when we say what exists in you, what exists in this surrounding? There are multiple forms of it. See, even if I speak about me, the humans, or the animals, or the plants, or that mold that you see on your bread, what is that? Fungus, mushrooms that you eat, right? Fungus. Or you talk about that algae that you find over the pond, or the pond scum that you speak about, or the bacteria that might exist but you cannot see through your naked eye. All of these are different forms of what exist. But what exists on a whole? थोड़ा सा कैनवस को बड़ा करते हैं. अभी एनवायरनमेंट क्या है? दिस इज द क्लासरूम, राइट? दिस इज एनवायरनमेंट इटसेल्फ इज अ रिलेटिव कॉन्सेप्ट, राइट? दिस कुड बी एनवायरनमेंट, राइट? You sketch or scale it up. The complete old Rajendra Nagar is also environment. Complete Delhi, India, Earth, universe. You can just scale up the canvas itself. Everything is environment, right? Now, what exists in this environment? Living things, non-living things. Fine. Can you differentiate between these two, or they are all unanimous or universal or ubiquitous? Or there's something ubiquitous between you and the non-living thing also.
We both exist in same environment. It's elements.
They are all elements. You are also one of the part of that element only.
We both exist in same environment.
You are in the same environment. You are formed of the same thing. So everything somewhere down the track starts from one basic thing. The complete universe starts from one basic thing, right? My point of explaining is, when we differentiate between me and rest of the things, how do we differentiate between me and the rest of the things, right? I'm trying to explain that only, and I'll come on to that point, right? How do you differentiate whenever you say environment on a whole? I say everything except me. Why everything except me, and how we differentiate between that? I'll come over to that. Now, first and foremost thing that we can understand, okay, fine, this we have seen that everything is universal. Either me or the environment, we are all the same. We are all form of the same things. We are all created by the same thing. That may be elements, that may be anything, right? And this is true for the complete universe. Fine. This is true for the complete universe. Then what exists in the universe? What is the basic constituent of universe? Which is the constituent of you also? The basic constituent of the universe, carbon or something. If you're trying to come up to that, right? The basic constituent of the universe is matter. right? Be it be in any form, be it be carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, water, right? Aluminium, now anything. All that exists is matter. With matter, what exists? Universal form, energy, right? तो समझ में आता ना? There are various forms of the energy. Right? Be it be solar energy, be it be heat energy, sound energy, light energy, different forms of the energy. They are all forms of the energy. Right? But what exists universally in the environment, be it be in anything, be it be living, be it be non-living, be it be bacteria, be it be humans, be it be plants, this matter and energy would exist. This is the basic thing. This is the universal thing. So either you or the environment is actually made out of matter and energy. Now this is constant. This never changes. Does energy changes? Yes, it changes. It changes its form. Right? Neither it is created nor it is destroyed. It is only transformed from one form to another form. Whatever energy was created during the, we can say, formation of the universe itself, that energy is existing and that energy will keep on existing also. It would only transform from one form to another form, from one type to another type. And in doing so, say from energy one form to energy second form, in doing so, it also creates various types of the matter, which is also universal, ubiquitous, and pre-existing. Matter was also not created nor is not destroyed. It only transformed from one form to another form. Whatever matter was present during the origination of the universe, the sum total of the matter present today in the universe is equal to the matter which was present during the origin of the universe. Nothing has changed. It is just that it has expanded. It is continuously, it is expanding and expanding and expanding, and it will keep on expanding unless there is a deflation. Come again. Matter is, again, it has been transformed. This matter, I'll come up to this also. This matter is also in a particular cycle of this. And this will continue to happen. This will continue to happen. One form of the energy will continuously be transformed to another form of the energy. In doing so, in a cyclic pattern, one form of the matter is also converted into another form of the matter. Right? Plants, they trap solar energy. Sun is the source of energy. That energy comes from fusion of the different types of the gaseous molecule that we call as hydrogen or helium, right? So sun creates energy, or there is a formation of the energy, or there is a transformation of the energy that has been trapped by plants, right? Plants die out, fossilified, gets converted into coal. So one form of the matter gets converted into another form of the matter. One form of the energy, solar energy, converted into another form of the energy, which is chemical energy, which we again burn, and we'll produce gases, another form of the matter, which would again be taken up by plants, and again they would be fossilified. This process would go on. Another process of conversion of solar energy into chemical energy into another form of the energy. When you will burn down coal, there would be heat. When you burn down coal, there would be light. So that solar energy is converted into different forms of the energy, and that again would merge down to some form of the energy again. It will create again certain types of the elements. It would create again different types of the matter. So formation of the matters and formation of the energy, or transformation of the matters and transformation of the energy, would continuously happen in this universe, right? So in our environment, what is ubiquitous? Energy and matter, and the processes involved with energy and matter. Nothing would happen. Nothing can disrupt this thing. This happens inside you also, this happens in the surrounding also, right? This is common in your internal environment, this is common in your external environment. These all processes, they would go on. Nothing would change, right? So whenever we say matter and energy, everything is, again, if we say this is universal, this is found in universe, then this is also would mean that everything is formed of matter and energy only. Or different things that we see, they are just the forms of matter and energy only, right? They are just the forms of matter and energy, right? And in the major forms, for our understanding that we say, in the major forms for our understanding that we say, what are the two different forms of matter and energy that we see in the surrounding? The major differentiation when we say, what do you see in the surrounding? The major forms of energy and matter, living and non-living, right? These are two different forms. They're just the forms of living, they are just the forms of energy and matter only. You are formed of energy and matter. This chair is also formed of energy and matter only, right? So we have living and the non-living part, right? So again, now we have differentiated. Everything was universal, but how it has been differentiated? By living and non-living. And how do you differentiate this living and non-living? Okay.
The way they perform their
Right. Okay. Can you elaborate on that? Depending upon the internal factors or depending upon the internal organizations, etc. Can you elaborate on that?
we as a being living
Livings are made of cells, non-livings are made out of, not made out of cells.
composition of ours and
The structural composition of you and the rest, the non-living things. Whether a chair is a non-living thing?
before transformation is a living after transformation.
Okay, fine. Then how does the structural transformation would change? A chair made out of wood. Before it is been converted into a wood, it was earlier a tree, right? It was formed of cell. After that, it is again a form of cell only. You know what is the meaning of cell? Cell is the basic constituent of living. And how it was discovered? In the cork cambium, if you remember, Robert Hooke, right? He just took out a slice of cork and that cell was discovered. So cork had cells. Wood will have cells. How? Then the structural composition differentiation has been nullified. It is still living. It has some sense. So you can speak talking to your chair also.
The thing is, the cell is transformed from other cell.
The cell is transformed from the other cell.
So that the component of that cell will be
Because cell is living over here in our body, cell is non-living over there in the wood. Your point of explaining is this only. Fine, I understood. Cell is living in, say, in your body or in the plant, it is living. Outside the plant or when it is being converted into a wooden chair, it is non-living. Fine, I understood that thing. Again, that question remains the same. What is living, what is non-living?
It may constitute a continuous process of reaction, and maybe there is a continuous process of maybe internal and external interaction. Non-living is basically when there is like non-living does not have any interaction.
Does not have any interaction. Sure.
it doesn't form it.
It does not have that chemical composition of, for example, like we have this continuous process of breathing oxygen and carbon dioxide. Exactly goes to plants. But when you talk about these non-living tables, they don't have this process of
The chemical reaction.
chemical reaction.
But iron rust out in the air. It is a chemical process. Whether iron is living or non-living, it is non-living. You're on to that point only.
Same concept, the matter and energy concept.
The matter and energy concept only. Now see the basic difference between a living and a non-living, and everything that you speak about, that you think about, is as the consequence of it only. Right? The basic difference between living and non-living, living can themselves transform this energy and matter. They have that engine. In a simple understanding, they have that engine. They will transform. That happens through a basic process of what is called as metabolism. Right? What is called as metabolism? There is a process of breakdown of certain things. There is a process of synthesis of certain things. So anabolism and catabolism that can happen, and that becomes metabolism. And as a consequence of this metabolism, this energy and matter would continuously be transformed in living beings. That would not happen in non-living beings. Right? So in a layman's language, we can say livings have their own engine, or livings are a kind of an engine. Right? Thermodynamics, have you read about? किसी ने साइंस पढ़ा? अच्छा ये बेसिक लॉ तो पढ़ा होगा. Energy can never be created nor be destroyed. Only can be transformed from one form to another form. Right? The similar thing happens to heat. Heat can never be created nor be destroyed, can only be transformed from one form to another form. Then there is second law. And there is third law also of the thermodynamics. The second law says that if we need to transform certain form of the energy or the heat from one form to another form, we always require an aid. कार्नोट्स इंजन और कार्नोट साइकिल ये सब पढ़ा होगा, केल्विन साइकिल आ जाता है उसमें, 10th क्लास में भी पढ़ा होगा थोड़ा बहुत इसके बारे में, राइट? रेफ्रिजरेटर है, वो किसी भी चीज को कूल डाउन कर देता है, वो क्या करता है, हीट को एक्सट्रैक्ट कर लेता है एंड एड्स इट इनटू द एनवायरनमेंट. बट in doing so, refrigerator always will have an engine or an external aid. Right? You simply understand in your body also goes through a process of cooling down. Right? You run up to say for say 2 kilometers, your body would heat up owing to breakdown of various things, and then it would gradually cool down. So it heats up and cools down because of the internal processes or the internal reactions that are being taken inside your body, which are self-catalyzed, not aided by any engine. किसी के पास engine है क्या? कहीं पे tail wheel में लगाओ? नहीं है, right? We are an engine in ourselves. We are self-catalyzed. We are self-metabolized also. We will metabolize things ourselves. So this energy and matter transformation would take place continuously, simultaneously, or spontaneously in the living beings without any external aid which is being required, and in the non-living things this will not happen. This energy and matter transformation would always require an external aid. You will require an external aid for things to happen. That's how the living and non-living things, they are being differentiated. Everything is formed of the same thing. So now, if we understand in the environment, come down to the same thing. We started with everything surrounding me is environment. So in the environment, there are two different types of the things. One, which are engines in themselves. Another one, which require an engine for the things to happen. Living and non-living. Living and non-living. So whenever we say one thing in a simple way, that fine, livings are an engine in themselves. Now for any engine to function, it would always require a fuel. Right? Engines cannot perform themselves. Right? They would always require a fuel. So whenever we say living beings, they are continuously exchanging things from the surrounding. They are continuously exchanging things from the surrounding. Right? Either they will eat up something. How do you exchange things from the surrounding? Through basic method of food only. Through basic method of food only. And there are various concepts in ecology itself which explain the only thing, what is the basic meaning of your existence. You're living, right? You're living, you're transforming energy yourself, energy and matter yourself. You're exchanging things from the surrounding. Fine. What is the basic meaning of your existence? Why do you exist? There could be various answers to this question. Why do you exist? I exist to become a civil servant. I exist to become a good human being. I exist to become an intellectual human being. There could be various answers to this, right? But ecology says, why do you exist? You just exist for and by food only. You exist, either you exist for food of something, or you exist by food of something. You eat green plants, they eat solar energy, food energy, right? Food energy comes into human beings, then goes into something else also. Let's human being the topmost predator, we said, fine, humans are not being eaten by anything. You come up to say cow or deer. Deer eat grasses, right? Solar energy fixed into grasses comes down to deer. Deer is being eaten by a lion. So deer exist by food of the grasses. Deer exist for food of the lion. So in ecology, you only exist because of food. You are nothing but just food. Your existence is nothing but just food. Either you are the food for something or something is food for you. That's it. That is your basic existence. So whenever we say living beings, we have spoken about this thing. Everything is energy and matter. Differentiated into this thing that fine, some can transform, some cannot transform. Those which transform, they also exchange. Those which transform, they also exchange. They will also exchange. It is not so that non-living things would not exchange, but the processes are not self-catalyzed. Over here, the processes are self-catalyzed, right? They would exchange, and what they would exchange? They would exchange food. They are continuously in that constant cycle. They are continuously in that constant cycle of by and for food only. Which one? The living ones, right? The living ones. And when in the surrounding, you become a factor which is exchanging food, you become a factor which is exchanging food, that factor becomes biotic. That factor becomes biotic. So unless or until you are exchanging food, you are biotic in nature, in environment, right? You are biotic in nature. And everything else which is not in this cycle of exchange, everything else, if there is no exchange, right, which is not in that cycle of say by and for food, it can be a constituent of it, it can be a sub party to it, but not in a continuous cycle of eating something or getting eaten up by something, right? In a simple understanding, eating something or getting eaten up by something, if it is into not that cycle, that becomes abiotic. It can aid the basic process of food, but not exactly food, right? Chair है, अभी किसी को भूख लगे खाना खाने ना, तो कुछ दिन बाद चेयर भी खा जाओगे. कुछ लोग होते हैं ना, वुड भी खा जाते हैं, स्टील भी खा जाते हैं. That becomes a food, right? So it can aid, but it is not in that continuum. अभी कोई किसी को खाएगा नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है कि रात में अगर बैठ जाओ तो चेयर खा जाए. Haunted नहीं है ये, right? So it is not eating something, or it is not getting eaten up by something, but it can aid into that process. It becomes abiotic. So usually what happens? We say the non-living things are abiotic. Those who say non-living things are abiotic, it is just a very generalized statement. There is a clear-cut difference between being non-living and being abiotic. Non-livings are just a type of being abiotic because they are two different definitions. They are two different concepts. One which will help in making food is abiotic. Not in a cycle of food is abiotic. One which is in the cycle of food is biotic, right? Which is in the basic cycle of food is abiotic. अब इसकी कई definition बनाते हैं biotic और abiotic की. पहला definition क्या बनाते हैं? Biotic and abiotics में difference ये देते हैं कि biotics are those which are in a continuous cycle of exchange. Continuous cycle of exchange. If you exchange something from the environment and if you do not exchange, you are abiotic, which is absolutely not correct, right? Some of them also write that biotics are living beings, abiotics are non-living beings. We can simply see over here these two different definitions, they are poles apart. The basic meaning of biotic is something which is in the cycle of food. If you are in the cycle of food, you are biotic. If you are outside the cycle of food, you are abiotic. right? If you are just aiding the cycle, you are abiotic. So biotic and abiotic is only explained on the basis of this basic thing, which is food energy, right? You can write down this definition if you want. Yeah, I'll come up to your question. Biotic, or we can say living beings. Living beings exchange energy and matter through self-catalyzed mechanisms. Through self-catalyzed mechanisms. While abiotics, while non-living, sorry, not abiotics, while non-living do not have a self-catalysis for energy and matter exchange. For energy and matter exchange. Next, biotic factors of environment. Biotic factors of environment are those biotic factors of environment are those which are in continuous exchange of food energy, continuous exchange of food energy themselves. Right? Abiotic factors do not exchange food energy. Abiotic factors do not exchange food energy, but can be a constituent aid, in food energy cycle. A constituent aid in food energy cycle. Right? So biotic and abiotic. Now you can write down a question over here. This is a very conceptual question. Many a time students get confused over here. Consider following statements. Living beings are always biotic. Statement number 1. Living beings are always biotic. Statement number 2. All biotics of environment are always living. All biotics of environment are always living. Statement number 3. Abiotic factors are the non-living constituent factors of surrounding. The non-living constituent factors of surrounding. Right? How many of these are correct? Only 1, only 2, only 3, only 1, only 2, all 3, none of them. अभी देखो एनवायरमेंट में इससे इजी क्वेश्चन नहीं बन सकता, ठीक है। अभी स्टेटमेंट नंबर 1 तो अभी हमने कॉन्सेप्ट को पढ़ा, अब बताओ क्या होना चाहिए आंसर। ऑल 3 सी, दैट मीन्स ऑल 3 आर करेक्ट।
Only one is correct. Why? Because living beings are always biotic, means they may be like tree is a living being. Consider after getting transformation into chair, can't be a biotic.
That is not living over there. When it get transformed into a chair, it is not living.
It is a
Wood itself becomes abiotic, but plant is a biotic factor. It is a living factor. You don't get confused by plant and chair. Plant is living, chair is non-living. It would not grow spontaneously, or it would not go into that process of continuous exchange or metabolism. But plant can go into a metabolism, right? So I'm going to read again. All 3 are correct, right? So statement number 1, living beings are always biotic, right? Statement number 2, the biotic factors of the environment are always living. This statement looks correct. The biotic factors of environment are living. Of course, whenever they are into an exchange of food, then they are biotic, and they can only exchange food when they become living. The living cycle is only understood into the food chain, right? Or the food cycle. Fine. Statement number 2 is correct. But what about statement number 1? The living beings are always biotic. Fine. See, now I understood that point. I knew, and this question has been created for that confusion only. Right? Whenever we say such type of the easy questions, we also have to look up to the meaning of the statement which is being correct. What does it tries to say? The living beings are always biotic. The statement number 2 is correct. Biotic are living beings only, but living beings are always biotic. There could be an exception. There could be an exception, right? Frogs, they don't eat for 4 months. Neither get eaten up by something, right? You speak about a particular process which is called as hibernation, estivation. They go into deep sleep. Though there is metabolism, there is exchange of energy, they are living, but not in a cycle of exchanging food. When they come out to surrounding, start eating something, start getting eaten up by something, become biotic, right? So living beings can have an exception that they cannot always be biotic. अगर वो food cycle से बाहर आ गया तो abiotic तो नहीं है, लेकिन biotic भी नहीं है, ठीक है। जब तक वो food cycle में है, कुछ खा रहा है, by food, for food, fine, biotic है। जब वो for food, by food नहीं है, सो गया, आप सोते हो, ठीक है, और उस समय वो कोई खा सकता है आपको, उतनी डीप स्लीप में नहीं सोते हो, या आप कुछ खा सकते हो, सो के उठ के भूख लगे खा लोगे, फिर सो जाओगे, सेंसेस है, राइट, या चांस है। जो ब्रीफ टाइम ऑफ स्लीप है उसको हम छोड़ दें तो हाइबरनेशन एस्टिवेशन एक ऐसा टाइम है जहां पे वो साइकिल से ही बाहर आ जाता है, राइट। दैट बिकम्स, सो द बेसिक क्वेश्चन मार्क rises over here whether the statement is correct or not. No, when such easy questions are being given, there is a hidden thing in these questions. That hidden thing is about the meaning of that sentence. थोड़ा सा लॉजिक अगर लगाओगे सही डायरेक्शन में तो ये क्वेश्चन सही है, अदरवाइज क्या होता, ऑल 3 आर करेक्ट, आंसर क्या होना चाहिए, ओनली 2 आर करेक्ट, राइट। नाउ योर क्वेश्चन, यू वांटेड टू आस्क समथिंग, it is clear now, right? So whenever we say, so I started up with this only thing that everything in this universe is energy and matter. We are all form of energy and matter, and how we get differentiated at the level of being living and non-living, being biotic and abiotic itself, right? Now, so whenever we say biotic factors, of course, whenever we say biotic factors are nothing but just, we have seen, okay, fine, whatever may be the exception, but whenever we say biotic is always a living being only. समझने के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से सही है, लेकिन लिखने के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से नहीं है. ठीक है? When we try to understand, fine, what is biotic? Biotic is a living being only. Right? A process of being biotic can only be performed by the living being only. Or the basic process of being biotic is only held by a living being only. Non-living things can never be biotic. Can never be biotic. Right? Because उसके लिए both ways होना चाहिए. आप कुछ खा रहे हो, आपको कुछ खा रहा है. Right? तो आप बायोटिक हो. जैसे आपके बॉडी में भी आप कुछ खा रहे हो, कुछ आपको भी खाता है. मच्छर आके खा के जाता है. Right? बैक्टीरिया आके खा के जाता है. फंगस आके खा के जाती है. You are in a continuous cycle of exchange, but that does not happen with the non-living being. So being biotic is the elementary. Being biotic or being biotic is the principle of living beings only. Nothing else. Nothing else can be biotic. Right? But yes, living beings can be sometimes biotic, sometimes may not be biotic. Right? We would not say abiotic. But if it is outside the exchange of food, abiotic. Right? तो अब बताओ, जैसे डेड बॉडी है ह्यूमन बीइंग्स की, वो बायोटिक है कि एबायोटिक है? एबायोटिक है. राइट? बिकॉज इट हैज लेफ्ट दैट साइकिल ऑफ फूड. उसको कोई खा तो सकता है. राइट? वल्चर आके खा जाएगा, लेकिन वो कुछ खा नहीं रहा है. ठीक है? वो कुछ खा नहीं रहा है. राइट? सो being biotic or being living would always mean, what does it would mean? Being biotic would always mean there is something which is entering into and there is something which is going out. Both should exist simultaneously. If it is not existing simultaneously, then it is not biotic. ठीक है? ठीक है? Those which are eating dead bodies, they are biotic. Those which are eating dead bodies, they are biotic. But dead body itself is not biotic. It is abiotic. छोटा सा concept है, छोटी छोटी चीजें, but miss नहीं करना इन चीजों, right? So in this way, we can simply differentiate between biotic and abiotic, being food or being non-food laden also. Now, whenever we say biotic factors, or whenever we say the basic concept of food itself, you say food. Now, how do you gather this food? What is the basic mechanism of having food? Conversion of one form of the energy into another form. Fine, that is food energy. Fine. What are different types of the food? Vegetarian, non-vegetarian. Right? Now you cut down into vegetarian and non-vegetarian. Fine. Herbivores and carnivores. Right. Chalo. Abhi we'll understand this thing also, that how biotic factors will have this food or the type of food also. This would cut down to various different definitions also, again, which we need to understand before entering into something else also. Right? Now, food can be of, again, now we have seen, we have differentiated into two major things or three major things. Right? Food can be herbivorous. Right? When you eat plants only. Food can be carnivorous. Right? When you eat the animals only. Right? Or it can be omnivorous when you eat plants and the animals altogether. Right? Or it can be opportunity wars also. Whatever would be found, we can eat the omnivores. Right? The other type of those which eat the dead. Right? Other types of those which eat the dead, decomposers. Right? So based on type of food itself, the biotic factors are of three major classes. What are these classes? These are herbivores, carnivores, and decomposers. Now, in different understanding, they are also being given different terms also. In terms of ecology, in terms of environment, they are being given as those which are called as producers. Because for everything to function in environment, for everything to function in the surrounding, for everything to function for the food energy, for everything to function for the food energy, they are responsible. They initiate the things because they can fix the solar energy. Whatever sunlight is coming into, or whatever different types of chemicals which are being present, which otherwise are the abiotic factors. Right? Be it be chemicals, be it be sunlight, these are all the abiotic factors. So they can bring in these abiotic factors into something which can create food or the food energy. So they also fix the food energy. They also fix the food energy. The basic process of fixing this food energy initiates the process of being biotic. Right? The basic process of fixing this food energy initiates the process of being biotic. अब अभी आप बोलो कि producers तो कुछ खा तो रहा है उसको कुछ, लेकिन वो कहां से खा रहा है? लॉजिक में डाउट तो आ सकता है ना. ठीक है, आपने ये लॉजिक तो बना दिया कि बायोटिक वही है जो कुछ खा रहा है, उसको कुछ खा रहा है, सनलाइट ले रहा है, वाटर ले रहा है, एबायोटिक फैक्टर्स ले रहा है, लेकिन वो एक ऐसे प्रोसेस में जा रहा है जहां पे वो अपना फूड एनर्जी खुद बना रहा है. द बेसिक प्रोसेस, that's what I have said. The basic process of fixing this food energy initiates the basic process of being biotic. कहने का मतलब सिर्फ इतना ही है कि वो अपना खाना बना रहा है, वो खुद से बना रहा है, बट वो इनिशिएट कर रहा है, वो फूड एनर्जी जनरेट कर रहा है. राइट? फ्रॉम प्रोड्यूसर्स कंज्यूमर्स कम इनटू. Consumers come into, they simply depend on the food energy created by producers. They depend upon producers' food energy. Right? Now these consumers can be either carnivores or they can also be omnivores. Be it be anything. They all depend upon the energy which is earlier created by the plant only. The energy which has been fixed by the plant goes into plant, remains with the plant, goes into carnivore. From carnivore, it goes into omnivores, the topmost consumer. This becomes a basic food cycle or the food chain also. Right? From consumers, either this can get converted into an abiotic factor, which may be elements getting decomposed or deteriorated, or the energy can also go into decomposers, which is simply decomposers can be those which attain energy from the dead consumers. Right? Right? This could be a simple meaning of the different types of the food, or these could be different types of the biotics. Right? Producer, consumer, decomposer, they are three major classes of the biotics. But the basic process can be of various types. Right? The process of attaining food, or we can say the process of nutrition, the basic process of nutrition can be of different types, right? And there are two major types of these processes which are being called as, right? Now, whenever we say anything relative to food in ecology, whenever we talk about food related thing, there's one term which you'll always find. That term is trophic. This term, this suffix you will always find, right? Trophic, trophic, relative to this only, right? Trophic means food, right? In food chain also, every food group is also being classified as trophic level. Every food chain. What is food chain over here? Food chain over here is you have producer, you have consumer, and then you have decomposers coming over here. This itself becomes a chain, continuous chain, right? Now there could be many consumers linked over here, primary, secondary, tertiary, there could be many consumers linked over here. This itself becomes a food chain. This is nothing but just the exchange of food energy. In the ecology, exchange of food energy between the constituent biotic factors of the ecosystem, or we can say of the environment or of the surrounding. So this becomes a food chain. In this food chain, every level is called as a trophic level. This is a trophic level, this is a trophic level, this is a trophic level. Every level is called as a trophic level over here. So that term comes into, trophic comes into. Now basic processes of nutrition, whenever we say, there are two major processes of the nutrition. And we have seen this in different, or this as a difference of being producer and also being consumer. The basic difference of being producer and being consumer differentiates the first thing in the process of nutrition. Either you can synthesize your own food, or you cannot, or you depend on others for the food, right? When you synthesize food, you come into one class of the biotic factors. Second one is you depend on others. You come into another class of the biotic factors, right? When you synthesize your own food, you are being termed as autotrophic. अभी trophic आ गया word. Trophic मतलब food. Auto means automatically this is being gained. So when you synthesize your own food, you are autotrophic. When you depend on others for food, you are heterotrophic. Hetero would mean, because see, this term hetero comes as an antagonist of the term homo. Homologous, heterologous, right? Homotrophic, heterotrophic. Heterotrophic word comes over here because there is a variety of method through which this nutrient can be attained. Either you eat vegetarian, or you eat non-vegetarian, or you eat the decomposer or the decomposed part, anything you say. There is a variety which has been included. So if there is a variety of food, this becomes heterotrophic. Multiple, right? Heterotrophic. The second type. Right? Now being autotrophic, now there are certain terms which we need to, this is understood. You synthesize food, you are autotrophic. You don't synthesize, you are heterotrophic. Now this autotrophic itself can be of 4 different types. First one, or the first type of the autotrophic, are those which do not depend on sunlight but can synthesize food, right? Which do not depend on sunlight but can synthesize food. These are those type of the biotic factors of the living beings which are the forefathers of the living generation on earth. They are the ancestors, the ancestral organism, living being, the living being which was created first when life originated on earth. When life originated on earth, the living beings were never phototrophic, or they were never photosynthetic, right? Life originated much before photosynthesis originated, right? So if it is, this is a very simple question, this is a very simple doubt which is being asked. What happens if the photosynthetic organisms on earth die immediately? The life would be finished completely? No. There would be certain organisms which would be left as those which do not depend upon photosynthetic modes of nutrition. So, what does it mean? There is a method of nutrition else than photosynthesis also. photosynthetic also and chemosynthetic also, right? So the first one, which are those which create their food from the oxidation or reduction of chemicals, right? The primitive living beings, right? The archaebacteria that we say, the first living being that originated on earth was chemoautotrophic. They are termed as chemoautotrophic. Chemo word kahan se aaya? Chemical, right? Autotrophic to matlab samajh mein aata hai. Chemo matlab they are creating food from chemicals. Food from oxidation or reduction of chemicals, then they become chemoautotrophic. Simple, right? They are chemoautotrophic in nature. Now these chemicals can also be of two types, right? Chemicals दो तरीके के होते हैं, एक कार्बन बेस्ड केमिकल है, एक नॉन कार्बन बेस्ड केमिकल है, right? Which we call as organic chemicals and inorganic chemicals. Those which will contain carbon, they are organic chemicals. Those which will not contain carbon, they are inorganic chemicals. So chemoautotrophic can also be of two types. This can be of two types. If the chemical is organic, this is chemoorganotroph. When the chemical is organic in nature, right? The other ones are chemolithotrophs. Litho word comes from lithosphere. Suna hai na? Lithosphere means earth. And the major inorganic substances, they are called as the earth metals. Iron, copper, zinc. These are all formed from earth only, right? So the word litho comes over here. Chemolithotroph, right? So chemoorganotroph and chemolithotroph when chemical is inorganic. Now, there are various examples of it. All the examples, they are all the archaebacteria. They are all the examples of chemoautotroph, like chemoorganotroph. Nowadays, you'll find oil degrading bacteria, although the oil degrading bacteria which is known right now is the genetically modified, but there are certain varieties or there are certain characters in bacteria itself to degrade oil, right? They are organic in nature, they break down oil and they get their energy from them, right? In the living forms that we say, the iron bacteria, example of it, the iron bacteria are the chemolithotrophs and the sulfur bacteria, they are being taken up as the iron sulfur bacteria, they are being taken up as the example of chemoorganotroph. Abhi dekho, last year a question was asked, simple question, right? Bacteria exist in high acid environment, bacteria exist in high chemical composition environment, bacteria exist in high temperature environment. Everywhere bacteria exist, and all of these three statements were correct. Question, logic kahan se aata hai? Yahin se aa jata hai, right? Bacteria can exist, sulfur bacteria, it exists in high temperature condition. At the volcano vents, you will find the sulfur bacteria, right? They are chemoorganotrophs, right? Iron bacteria at the lowest trenches of the oceans, you will find the iron bacteria. They are far away from the sunlight, right? But you will find those which are iron eating or those which will take up iron as their constituent thing, and they will compose food out of it. They become the iron bacteria. High temperature, sulfur acid bacteria, right? High temperature or the volcano vents. High acid conditions also. You'll find these type of the bacteria. All different types of all the non-habitable conditions, if you understand, right? those which are non-habitable in general sense. You will find bacteria over there also, right? And why do you find bacteria over there? Because of this only. They have variety of the feeding habits that we can see, right? The other form of the autotroph. One is food is formed by the oxidation and reduction of chemicals. Another form is food is formed by sunlight. Food formed by sunlight. This itself becomes the photoautotrophic. Now the term photo comes over here. That was chemoautotrophic. Now this is photoautotrophic. Right? Those which can synthesize food with the help of sunlight. Now, based on this also, there are also two types. Based on this, photoautotrophic, either the food synthesized is organic in nature or inorganic in nature, right? When the food synthesized is organic, food is organic in nature, this becomes photoorganotroph or photosynthetic. This becomes photosynthetic. The photosynthetic ones are those which can utilize sunlight and produce organic substance. What is the outcome of photosynthesis? Glucose. Green plants in presence of carbon dioxide and water and sunlight creates glucose, which is the basic food for the plants also. That is photosynthetic mechanism, or photosynthetic or photoorganotroph. The word itself suggests photo, light, organo, organic substance, troph, food, right? The second ones, when the food is inorganic in nature. This becomes the second type of the food method, which is photolithotroph. The examples of these we all know, photosynthetic ones. All of the examples like the cyanobacteria, starting from this was the first photosynthetic organism which we can see on Earth, right? Then we have or cyanobacteria or blue-green algae. Right? This is the second form of the living being which came after the archaebacteria, right? Or green algae, all different forms of the algae, green algae, brown algae, red algae, all of these they are all the photosynthetic ones. Green, red, brown algae, they are also photosynthetic, and green plants. They are all the examples of this photolithotroph, iron sulfur bacteria. Example of it. Right? So two basic methods of food, phototrophic and being autotrophic, both of them we have seen. And then in autotrophic itself, or autotrophic or heterotrophic, two basic types. In autotrophic we have seen one, those which can create food out of chemicals. They are called as chemoautotrophic. They are of two types: chemoorganotrophs, which can create food out of the oxidation or reduction of the organic chemicals. Second ones are chemolithotrophs, which can create food from the oxidation and reduction of inorganic chemicals. The other ones are those which are photoautotrophic, which synthesize food with the help of sunlight. If they create organic food metabolites, they are called as the photoorganotrophs, which are photosynthetic organisms, right? Other ones are the photolithotrophs, right? Which can be iron sulfur bacteria, where the food synthesized out of sunlight is inorganic in nature, right? So these are forms of autotrophs. Yeah. Yeah, always refers to carbon containing substances, right? Whenever there is something which is not only carbon but carbon containing, nothing can be formed absolutely by carbon except graphite and graphene or diamond, else everything is carbon containing compound. So all those which are carbon containing compound, they are organic. Which do not contain carbon, they are inorganic in general understanding, right? There are various examples like methane, methanol, ethane, ethanol. These are all organic substances. Glucose, fructose, xylose, right? These are all organic substances. Inorganic substances, there could be anything which are without iron, without carbon, iron oxide, right? Then nitrogen oxides, phosphates. These are all inorganic in nature. So organic and inorganic chemicals. Right? So other ones are those which are heterotrophic, right? Now heterotrophic itself, they are interesting things. Now obviously they depend on others for food, right? They will depend on others for food. Now these, when they depend upon others for food, they can attain food through three different methods, right? They can attain food through three different methods. Now how you can attain something from someone, right? Either you kill someone completely, uproot it, kill it, and then eat it, right? One thing. Second thing is, so kill and eat is one method. Second method is you eat something continuously till it is being killed. Kill and eat is one method. Eat and kill is another method. And the third one is you eat something, you don't have that grudge, or you don't want yourself to get into that guilt of killing something, right? Or eating something which is living. So you get into the third method, which is eat which is already killed. Just three methods. Kill and eat is called as the basic heterotrophic method or the holozoic method that we perform. We as humans, we kill something, uproot it, and then we eat. Either we are vegetarian or non-vegetarian. Either we are herbivores or carnivores. We uproot something, kill it completely, and then eat it. ऐसा तो है नहीं कि वो जा करके गेहूं के खेत में ही, गेहूं के खेत में भी अगर खाओगे तो पहले उस पेड़ को निकालोगे. गाय भी अगर जाके खाती है तो पहले पेड़ निकाल के लाती है, फिर अपना खाती है जो खाना है उसको, right? So we kill something completely. So first form of it is called as holozoic or holophytic, or as an absolute term it is called as holotrophic. Holotrophic, right? Holotrophic means you completely eat something on a whole. बस यहाँ पे क्या है, ये silent है और ये भी silent है बाद में, e, right? You completely eat something, right? You uproot something and eat it. So what is this? This is kill and eat. You kill something and then you eat something. When you kill a plant and eat it, you become holophytic. Phyta, word comes from plant itself. These are those which are the herbivores. Holophytic, right? Holozoics are those which are the carnivores. Zoa. साइंस के नाम टफ लगते हैं, लेकिन थोड़ा सा अगर लॉजिक लगाओ ना तो साइंस के नाम से इजी कोई नाम नहीं. जुआ, जुआ किसे, जोलॉजी सुना? जू किस लिए होता है? एनिमल्स के लिए. तो होलोजोइक, zoic would come from animals, those which are carnivores. And together the holotrophic are omnivores, right? So holotrophic, you kill something and you eat it completely, holotrophic. The second ones, when you eat something continuously until it is being killed, is called as parasitism. Parasitism. You become parasite to something. You continuously eat something until it is being killed. That is a parasite, right? हर फ्रेंड पैरासाइट नहीं होता, लेकिन कुछ फ्रेंड्स पैरासाइट होते हैं, तब तक आपके साथ होते हैं, तब तक पैसा खत्म नहीं हो जाता है, राइट? तो जो फ्रेंड आपका पैसा खत्म हो जाने के बाद आपका हाथ साथ छोड़ देता है, भूल जाता है, नोट्स नहीं देता है, वो क्या है? वो पैरासाइट है. बाकी सब क्या है? सिम्बायोटिक्स है. सिम्बायोसिस क्या होता है अभी हम आगे बताएंगे, राइट? सो पैरासाइटिज्म इज समथिंग व्हिच इज यू ईट समथिंग and you kill it completely. There are various examples of being parasitism, right? Like bacteria is parasite, right? There could be examples of it. Bacteria, then funguses are also parasites. Protozoans, plasmodium, सुना है नाम क्या? Plasmodium क्या करता है? Malaria cause करता है, right? So that is also a protozoa. They are also parasites, right? Viruses को हम यहाँ नहीं डालेंगे because viruses are not the absolute living beings. इसलिए हम viruses को यहाँ पे नहीं रखेंगे. और दो उनका mechanism parasitic ही है. Virus, COVID-19, out inside your body it is living, outside your body it is non-living. So when it is non-living in the surrounding, it is abiotic over there. It is not in the cycle of exchanging food. So since it is not living, so it is not biotic. When it becomes living, it becomes biotic inside the parasite body only, inside the host body only. So viruses are peculiar examples of it, right? We can just write it just for the sake of understanding. But examples में viruses को कहीं place नहीं कर सकते हम ecology में, unless they don't have an absolute place. And since they don't have an absolute place in being living or in being non-living, so we do not classify them into nutrition also. But then too, right? These are all parasites. And there are certain plants also which are parasite on other plants, right? In parasitism, there is always a relation of being host and the parasite. There's one host which is getting eaten up, right? Or which is getting killed. That is a host. The one which is killing it or eating it is a parasite. Now this parasite can either eat the host externally or internally. This parasite can eat the host externally or internally. When it eats the host externally, it becomes ectoparasite. Ectoparasite, external. It is eating something externally. बाहर से लग जाए, जैसे फंगस है, राइट? आपके बॉडी पे लग जाता है, कई बार वो रिंग वर्म्स होते हैं, डैंड्रफ होता है, या ये सब है, सब क्या है? फंगस है, राइट? These are all external parasites. Externally they are eating, right? Like other ones are those which are endoparasites, which are internal in nature. They can eat anything internally. जैसे बैक्टीरिया है, बॉडी में चला जाता है, कॉमन कफ एंड कोल्ड का बैक्टीरिया है, टाइफाइड का बैक्टीरिया, एनी काइंड ऑफ दैट बैक्टीरिया, दैट इज, और अ टेटनस का बैक्टीरिया. दीज आर ऑल internal parasite. They go into your body and then disrupt the body, right? So endoparasite and ectoparasite. There's also one term which is being used, which is called as hyperparasite. If there is a parasite over the parasite, right? ऐसा भी होता है बॉडी में. बॉडी में एक फंगस होती है, वो आपके बॉडी पे लग गया, उस फंगस को मारने के लिए उस फंगस के ऊपर भी एक बैक्टीरिया है जो उसका पैरासाइट है, राइट? दैट इज कॉल्ड एज अ हाइपरपैरासाइट. So hyperparasite is parasite over parasite. So basic thing, right? So second form of it is parasitism. One is holozoic, another one is parasitism of the heterotrophic nutrition, and the third one is decomposers, or we can say detritivores, or also called as saprotrophic. These are those which will eat, which is already killed. Eat, which is killed. Or they will depend upon dead and decaying substances. अभी यहां पे दो टर्म्स लिखे हुए हैं, detritivore and saprotrophic. They are all dependent on dead and decaying, but they are two different things. अभी इसके exemplify जब मैं करते हैं detritivore को, they are all decomposers, right? When we exemplify this thing, detritivores are taken up as those which depend or which eat over dead bodies. Okay, dead bodies. Saprotrophs are those which eat over the dead material. There is a difference, right? Like jackal, hyena, all these, they are detritivores. Cockroach, it is a detritivore. But bacteria, fungus, these are saprotroph. How they are different? Why they are different? अभी एग्जाम्पल देखना इसका सबसे, ये अपने आप में बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट प्रोसेस है सेप्रोट्रॉफिक. इसके बहुत सारे एग्जाम्पल्स हैं. Yes, it is a simple thing. Just the example explains everything. Cockroach is a detritivore, but bacteria is a saprotroph. Why? Cockroach eats something which is already dead. That's what basic thing is. It eats the dead bodies. The one which is not decomposed. It is eating the dead. It is breaking everything down inside its body and ingesting something which is not required. And gains the nutrition out of it. Detritivore. Jackal, hyena, cockroach, these are all. They are eating the dead bodies, not those which are converted into simpler form. They are eating the complex forms, converting it into simple forms inside their body and ingest the waste material. Right? Saprotrophs, on the other hand, they will break down complex things into simple things first and then attain nutrition out of it. Right? Example देखो, सुना होगा बायोगैस के बारे में. सुना बायोगैस क्या होता है? क्या होता है बायोगैस?
Transforming the dead, like organic matter, into the fuel.
Right.
To produce energy.
Right. It is an example of being detritivore, or it is an example of saprotroph. Saprotroph. Bacteria, which is called as a methanogen bacteria. It breaks down everything which is complex dead material into simple material, achieves nutrition out of it, and the waste material of that process, of that cycle of breakdown, remains over there only. Right? So, हमारा जो बायोगैस है, it is an outcome of, it is the waste of the basic process of saprotrophism. Right? So, the basic difference, अभी ये मैं, we can write it down also. There is a process called as detritivore. There is a process called as saprotroph. Right? Detritivore. Example be cockroach, jackals and hyenas. They are all detritivores. Saprotrophs, bacteria, fungus, also some of the protozoans. They are saprotroph. No, they are not. Parasite will kill and eat. Basic concept दोनों का different है. Right? वो खाएगा फिर मारेगा. खाते 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 मार देगा. लेकिन saprotroph कभी भी ऐसा नहीं करेगा. सेप्रोट्रॉफ क्या करेगा? जो मरा हुआ उसको खाएगा. Just a difference, right? Slightest of the difference, but they look familiar, but there is a slight difference in the process, right? So you can write down with detritivore. Detritivore eat dead bodies, eat complex dead bodies, eat complex dead bodies and material completely, complex dead bodies and material completely, and break down them into simple forms, and break down them into simple forms internally. And the waste of such processes are egested out. Right? Example you have written, cockroach, jackal, hyena, etc. Second one, saprotroph. These are microorganisms. Which break down complex dead organic matter into simple form outside their body or externally, and absorb the simpler substances. Right? So there is a difference between being saprotroph and being detritivore. They are all classified into decomposers. Both of them, they are classified as decomposers, but they are different in their nature and behavior. So these are different types of the food patterns which we can see, based on which the basic type of biotic organisms are being classified. And based on this basic process of nutrition, the biotic factors are also being classified into 5 different types of living beings. That all we know. The first class of biotic factors are bacteria type of biotic factors, right? Second ones are protozoa. Third ones are funguses. Fourth ones are plants and algae. And fifth ones are animals. They can have different types of the basic mechanism of nutrition. The phototrophic nutrition remains with the plants and algae only, and the autotrophic nutrition is concentrated over here, bacteria and protozoa. Some of them are phototrophic, some of them are heterotrophic also, protozoa and bacteria. And then bacteria will have all different types of nutrition. When we say bacteria, it is autotrophic in nature also, right? It is chemoautotrophic in nature also, right? Then it is photosynthetic in nature also, right? Then bacteria itself is parasitic in nature also, and bacteria itself is saprotrophic in nature also. All different types of modes of nutrition can be seen with these type of biotic factors, bacteria. So they have a variety of diversity into that. Protozoan can be photosynthetic. First type, right? There are various types of the algae, golden brown algae. They are They are protozoa, photosynthetic protozoas. They can be parasitic. Then they can be saprotrophic also in nature. Funguses, majority of these, they are strictly saprotrophic. Right? They remain over dead and decaying substances only, be it be any form of it. Some of them can be parasitic also. Right? Plants and algae, strictly photosynthetic. When we say plants, they are photosynthetic. Everything else which is synthesizing food by say any other mechanism of being autotrophism, they are not plants. Green plants are always photosynthetic. Right? इसमें ऑप्शन में कुछ नहीं लिखा है कीमो या कुछ. So ये concept है अपने आप में. Those which are photosynthetic are only classified as green plants. Those which are photosynthetic, in the first thing, those which are photosynthetic, they are plants, right? Because this process of photosynthesis is being taken up by chlorophyll, and a class of chlorophyll is chlorophyll A and B is found only in green plants and green algae. Rest everything, you will find photosynthesis over here also, photosynthesis over there also, but that is not as being plants, right? For cyanobacteria, there is photosynthesis. For blue-green algae, there is photosynthesis. For red algae, there is photosynthesis. Over here, protozoa, photosynthetic. Right? Golden algae, there is photosynthesis. But that class of photosynthesis is not being taken up by a pigment chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. When that photosynthesis is being taken up by chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, it becomes green plant only. And only green plants classify for being completely photosynthetic, right? Only mode of nutrition for plants and algae is photosynthesis, nothing else, no parasitism, nothing else, right? Then there are, even if a plant is insectivorous plant, then too it is photosynthetic. Don't get confused. अभी आगे भी पढ़ेंगे, right? एक पिचर प्लांट होता है, Nepenthes, right? या Venus flytrap. These are plants which eat over insects, but they only eat over insects because they want to nullify the deficiency of nitrogen in their soil. Since they are growing into nitrogen deficient soils, so they are eating insects. Rest everything else is being given by photosynthesis only, right? Don't get confused out of these things, right? Animals are of various types. They can be holozoic or holophytic. Animals can also be parasitic in nature, and animals are detritivores also. None of them are photosynthetic in nature. No. Parasitic example, animal leeches, blood leeches, right? They are all parasites, ectoparasites. Right? So this is the basic class. This is how we classify being biotic in nature. Now, being biotic in nature would also signify one thing of being abiotic in nature also. What are these abiotic factors? How do you classify these? To classify, what we have done, we have understood abiotic factors as a constituent assembly of 5 things, which is abiotic factors are the constituent assembly of sunlight, water, air, temperature, and soil. So when we have all these 5 taken into account together, that is the abiotic factors taken into account together, the processes of biotic factors taken into account together, right? the constitution of the biotic factors taken into all together, then different things are being created, or when we try to understand all these things together. Now see, we speak about biotic, right? We speak about abiotic. Also, we classify them as something which is called as environment, right? This is what we have said. The overall crux of what we have discussed till this point is environment is fine. आपने जो पहला definition बोला था, environment is biotic and abiotic, but not in a true sense. Just the explanation of it. Environment is everything around me, and around me we can find biotic, we can find abiotic, not the living and non-living, right? Biotic and abiotic we can find. So, and in the environment itself, the biotics, they themselves depend on each other, or biotics, they do have an interaction with each other, right? Biotics do have an interaction with each other, right? Different types of interaction. They could be positive interactions, there could be negative interactions, there could be various different modes, tools of interacting. We'll discuss those interactions also, right? Like symbiosis, right? होता ना वो example सुना होगा. Example क्या है? Zooxanthellae and chloroxanthellae also. Coral reefs में, या सबसे best example rhizobium सुना होगा, right? In the root nodules of leguminous plants. These are various things, right? Then there are certain types of the crops which are called as the smoother crops, like sacred basil. तुलसी सुना? तुलसी हमेशा आंगन में उगती है या एक कंस्ट्रेंट एरिया में उगती है. क्यों? जहां तुलसी होती है उसके आसपास कुछ और नहीं उगाया जाता. Because it is sacred? No. It is a killer plant. It will not let any other plant grow in its vicinity. That is called as antibiosis, amencellism, right? Then there are certain organisms which live together also, but they benefit each other, but they are not dependent on each other. Jaise the crow and the buffalo, they live together, right? Crow and the buffalo, the insects over the buffalo would feed the crow, right? And the buffalo gets rid of the leeches, the crow gets the food, but they are not completely dependent on each other. Jaise zooxanthellae or chloroxanthellae of the coral reefs, none of them can survive independently, but buffalo and crow can survive independently. ऐसा तो है नहीं कि buffalo जिस दिन crow ना दिखे तो buffalo बोले कि अब जीवन में रखा क्या है, अब तो मर जाना चाहिए. Nothing. So that type of the interaction is commensalism. So there is something called as mutualism, when you mutually live together and you benefit each other, and you cannot live without each other, right? Perfect marriage, mutualism, right? Commensalism is living. You live, benefit, and if you don't live, it does not create a dam, right? Commensalism, right? Kind of, we can say not exactly a live-in relationship, or exactly we can say it is just a casual relationship, right? And then there is amencellism, जो toxic girlfriend या boyfriend होता है, right? एक दूसरे को मारने वाले जो होते हैं, amencellism, right? Antibiosis. So there are various other types of the interaction that we'll discuss in detail also once we'll progress. The biotic factors themselves, they will have an influence on each other. Like sunlight अगर increase हो जाएगा तो temperature भी increase होगा. Temperature increase होगा तो wind air direction सब change हो जाएगा. Wind air direction change हो जाएगा तो rainfall change हो जाएगा. Rainfall change होगा तो soil change हो जाएगी. Soil change हो जाएगा तो जो the basic conditions for the growth of biotic factors of the plants would also change. So there is an influence of the biotic, abiotic in themselves also. And then there is an influence of the abiotic over the biotics also. There's an influence of the abiotic over the biotics also. This complete is the basic meaning of environment. The constituents and the processes. The constituents and the processes is the basic meaning of this environment when we say. And when we understand this at every level, when we study this at every level, this is called as ecology. When we study everything over here is called as ecology. So ecology is the basic study of constituent and processes of surrounding or environment. Right? Constituent and the processes of surrounding and the environment. So this basically explain what आज की क्लास में मैंने थोड़ा सा एक जनरल आइडिया आपको बताया कि हम क्या पढ़ेंगे, कैसे पढ़ेंगे. अब इन सब चीजों को डिटेल में पढ़ेंगे. I will read everything. We will read about the processes in detail, the biotic processes, then the abiotic processes, abiotic factors also. Sunlight के बारे में we will explain everything. How sunlight is being created, how different things, different processes are being created, and then how living biotic factors exist over here. And in terms of ecology, ecology is explained as 𝗬𝗏 or autoecology. 𝗬𝗏 is when you took up something at the level of individual. At the level of individual. Something, one individual and its interaction with the surrounding. 𝗬𝗏. Right. Autoecology. 𝗬𝗏 at the community level, when many such individuals club together and various different species club together, right? What are their interactions? What are their influences on biotic factor? Autoecology, right? So 𝗬 and auto. So we'll understand this thing with the perspective of an individual also, with the perspective of a group also, and how these different types of these species, they are being created and they exist. That would all come up, right? Habitat, niche, ecosystem, ecological community, these all definitions, understandings, they will come up in the next class also. So ये भी हम आगे बात करेंगे when we'll continue with 22nd January onwards जब होगा, then we'll discuss about this thing, right? तो आज इतना ही for ecology, environment, definitions and concepts. This is just an orientation for environment, what we'll understand or how we'll understand, right? Tomorrow we'll discuss about, say, science and technology, right? So you can pick up a topic. Which topic you want in science and technology. So we'll discuss first about that. Nuclear power and all that, or space technology or something like that. Space technologies में वो missiles और वो सब आ जाएगा, missiles and all that. हालांकि वो defense में आता है, but you will understand about rocket propulsion and all that with space technology, right? ठीक है. We'll understand about space technology tomorrow, right? Or we'll look up to different aspects of it. Just an understanding, just to get oriented to this thing. Right? First thing is orientation. You must get aligned to this thing. जैसे अभी आज you got aligned to something, right? अभी यहाँ से पढ़ोगे, you will get to know. चलो ठीक है, ये चीजें अभी इस line में हैं, इस meaning में. You read everything. There's nothing that you won't get in your books or something like that, right? It's just the interpretation that has to come up. And when there is a right interpretation of what you have read, then only the confusing questions can be tackled. Right? Chalo. Thank you very much.